Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome everyone into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Everyone, welcome into the program. I hope that you are happy, you're healthy, and you are ready for today's show, because today's show is the one, the only, Mr. Ralph Bond. He is our science and tech trends correspondent, waiting oh so patiently in the wings to talk about a number of stories. Everything from green energy to a little bit of space, a little bit of I think he might be trying to push some skin cream on us. So, maybe a sales pitcher here or there. These are all going to be good stories, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And hey, everyone, you definitely want to stick around for that. So, but before we get started, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything, including all of Ralph's segments, all of our segments here, and of course, articles, reviews, show notes, social media links, all that and more. And the show notes are going to be super important. Just get that out there, because Ralph does a good job of kind of putting them all together with links, relevant articles, and yeah, just a one-stop shop. So everyone, let's go ahead and bring Ralph on, get things started, and hey, we'll have a lot of fun with it. So once again, Ralph Bond, he's a longtime Computer America contributor, and of course, our science and tech trends correspondent. Ralph, welcome back onto the program. How you been?
Great to be back, and we've got a really interesting mixed bag of science and tech news to share today.
Yeah, we do. And I might even ask you to switch around story number 4 and 3 before the end of the show, because, number 4, we might be able to make it uplifting, but, everyone, we're going to leave you on a little bit more of a positive note than I think 4. So,
all right.
1, 2, 4, 3, I think is today's agenda. But yeah, a lot of these are going to be a lot of fun. So obviously, as your title implies, science and tech trends, that's really what you focus on. And, with really the way that you're going, Ralph, though, I might have to throw in space here soon, because you've been really fascinated with space lately.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot going on. And Ben, as you know, and longtime listeners know, what I do is I aggregate science and tech news features that I find monitoring a host of online news outlets. And I look for important and sometimes wild and wacky out there stories, sometimes, that don't usually capture mainstream press attention, especially in this current era where, of course, the Ukraine war and other things like that are taking so much attention. I'm always on the lookout for news that gives a glimpse into where we're headed in robotics, medical technology, sustainable energy technology, transportation advances, and as you just mentioned, space research, physics, you name it. And what I do with each news item is present the essential points. I kind of digest it and get it down to a more approachable form of information. And I stress to our audience to check out the show notes that you mentioned that you post with the links and articles. So if you want to dive deeper, because there's a lot more in each one of these stories than what we're covering here in just sort of our Reader's Digest highlights approach. So check out those show notes.
Perfect. So everyone, with I think with that being said, we'll just jump right into story number 1, and something that I think a lot of people have been wondering about for a long time, which is green energy. Ralph, I mean, sometimes you come to us with stories like putting solar panels over aqueducts and canals, and things like that. It's really kind of innovative new ways to use green energy or implement it. But what is the current state of it? And this time we're going to be talking more about wind, but some good news.
Yeah, some really significant news. So the story, or the headline here, is U.S. wind energy just hit a major milestone. Picked up this story from CNN, and of course it was covered in other news outlets too. But the United States just set a major renewable energy milestone. Wind power recently became, this blew my mind, the second highest source of electricity for the first time since the U.S. Energy Information Administration began gathering data. And last year, wind was the 4th largest electricity source behind natural gas, coal, and nuclear. And it's amazing to jump from fourth to second in just a year. That's terrific. Recently, wind turbines generated about 2,000 gigawatt hours of electricity. And a gigawatt, by the way, is equal to 1 billion watts and is enough energy, for example, to power about 750,000 homes. So this sustainable wind output breakthrough, it's great. Of course it is. But good old fossil fuel, natural gas remains the largest source of electricity generation for the United States currently. And the U.S. Energy Information Administration projects the U.S. will bring another 7.6 gigawatts of utility scale wind online, this year, alongside 21.5 gigawatts of utility scale solar power. And Ben, not covered in the article, I did a little additional research, but here's where solar energy stands. According to the U.S. Energy Information Administration, solar energy provided about 2.3% of total U.S. electricity in 2020. And I just added these little bits just this morning before coming on the show with you. Mm-hmm. And the EIA predicts in 2021, it'll be about 4%. And this year it'll jump to 5%. So we're making progress. I'd love to see it, solar be a bigger part of the picture. But anyway, photovoltaic and solar thermal power are the two main types of solar electricity generation in the technologies. The reason I focused on solar at the end of this little commentary is the article didn't even touch on solar. And I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, this is all really good about wind, but where are we with solar? Because that seems to be so much of our attention is on solar. As you mentioned, the story about California covering one of their major aqueducts with solar panels. So that's why I wanted to bring in the solar equation.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of the sources that the CNN article had was this this graph from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. And Ralph, these numbers here in the bottom right, for everyone out there watching the video portion, you can see it there. But for everyone else, solar and when we talk about green renewable energy, solar does take such a front row seat. But it's really crazy seeing kind of the numbers, Ralph, and how nuclear. We're still generating more electricity from nuclear than we are from coal. I never even would have considered that. And then the fact that, hydro is generating 3 times the electricity of solar. I mean, solar gets like all the star and press and publicity, but between nuclear, wind, and hydro, there are a lot of other green options out there other than solar. So I'm glad that you focused on it as well. But I mean, it seems like to tackle this, to get those coal, natural gas, and petroleum numbers down, we got to really kick everything else up into high gear as well.
Yeah, exactly right. You make a good point. And that chart is really terrific. It's very informative.
Yes. So there's that one. And so a little bit of uplifting news, and the fact that you even included there that the U.S. is going to bring another, 7.6 gigawatts and 21 gigawatts of solar and wind. Yep. That's, the trends are definitely in our favor, and not soon enough though. Okay. So story number 1, story number 2, and I think a lot of press has been on the James Webb Space Telescope for obvious reasons. It's been up, it's getting aligned, it's getting ready for its debut. But Ralph, I'm still shocked and amazed that the Hubble telescope, how long has it been? How many decades? And it's still showing us some of the most amazing images out there. So story number 2.
That's a good trivia question. I don't recall when Hubble was launched. That's a good one. I don't recall.
You think about it while we do the story. At the end, I'll ask you, and I'll have the answer. Right. I promise.
Good. Yeah, it is astonishing. Talk about a workhorse. Good old Hubble. So headline here, picked it up from the Reuters news service, and of course other news services covered it as well. But Hubble telescope spots, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Earendel, the most distant star on record to date. And again, a story from Reuters. And once again, folks, go to the show notes. We have the links and everything else to help you learn more if you want to. So here we go. Here's the story. Using NASA's Hubble Space Telescope, scientists recently discovered the most distant individual star on record, a bright behemoth they nicknamed Earendel, which is the Old English word for morning star because it existed at the dawn of the universe. Now, fans of J.R.R. Tolkien, Middle Earth stories and so forth, think maybe it was named after Earendel the mariner and, of course, his wife, Elwing and so forth. But no, they did it actually on the Old English word for morning star relative to the age of this star, the dawn of the universe, which is really kind of mind-boggling. And here's another mind-boggling tidbit for you about this star, Earendel. Researchers said the star was estimated to be 50 to 100 times the mass of our sun, while being millions of times brighter. Wrap your head around this. And the light from this star traveled 12.9 billion years before reaching Earth.
Wow.
Okay. So Arendelle existed when the universe was just 7% of its current age. That's why scientists are flipping out over this. It's so interesting to them. Arendelle was born roughly 900 million years after the Big Bang event at the birth of the universe, a period of time scientists call the cosmic dawn. And researchers are hoping to study it further using the next generation James Webb Space Telescope, which you mentioned in passing. By the way, that will go online. I think it's late June, early July-ish time.
Can't wait.
And they think they'll be online. Oh, it's actually in my notes there. So when it becomes operational, late June or early July of this year, excuse me. Until now, the most distant single star on record was nicknamed Icarus, and it existed 4 billion years after Arendelle. Again, puts into perspective how ancient this star Arendelle is. So, wow, we're learning more and more about the early cosmic dawn phase of our universe.
Yeah, the very beginning of the universe is always, whenever I see one of those documentaries and they were talking about kind of the very, very beginning, from the singularity to kind of expanding, it's always fun to me, Ralph, to kind of think about just seconds from the singularity to expanding. Nothing applied. There were no laws of physics. There was no time. There was no nothing, because it was just so chaotic. It's just like there was nothing. There was singularity, and then just and then the universe grew to what was it, 50% of its current size or something like that.
Yeah.
I can't imagine why the star is also millions of times brighter than ours, despite only being 50 times bigger. It's strange all around. I hope they figure out everything about it. So actually, and of course, as I was saying before, Ralph, Hubble Space Telescope. I know why I don't remember it. It's because I wasn't born yet. I was born in 91. Ralph, do you know when the Hubble was first launched?
I don't remember. Tell me. Have you figured it out?
90. It was launched April 24th, 1990. So actually in 2 days, it'll be the 32nd anniversary.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Very, very, very timely article. So there you go. Hubble's still doing stuff. And I guess that's just kind of the way of it. Ralph, you spend all the effort, the trouble getting one of these giant space telescopes up in orbit. You don't just throw those things away. Hubble will continue to be its good self for quite a while. So there you go. Story number 2. Now, as I said before, we're going to everyone close their eyes just for a second. There we go. Story number 4, and then we'll head on back to 3. So let's go ahead and hit this.
Yeah, story 4. This one's eerie, weird, but also kind of fascinating in a way. Fascinating example of science coming out of tragedy. But here's the headline. For the first time ever, scientists recorded the brain activity of a dying human. This comes from Frontiers Science News. And again, other sources were covering this story as well, but that was my main source. And there's a video too you can check out in the show notes, and Ben might be firing it up as we speak. So neuroscientists at the University of Tartu, that's Tartu, in Estonia, recently published a startling report documenting their findings after unexpectedly recording the brain activity of a dying man. And here's how this all came about. When an 87-year-old patient developed epilepsy, doctors and neuroscientists at the University of Tartu used continuous electroencephalography, EEG, to detect the seizures and treat the patient. But during these recordings, the patient had a sudden heart attack and died. The unexpected tragic event allowed the scientists to record the activity of the dying human brain for the first time ever. Activity similar to those occurring during, and this is really interesting, check this out, activity similar to those occurring during dreaming, memory recall, and meditation. The team measured 900 seconds, that's 15 minutes, of brain activity around the time of death, focusing on 30 seconds before and after the heart stopped beating. And just before and after the heart stopped working, the researchers saw changes in a specific band of neural oscillations, so-called gamma oscillations. And these oscillations, these gamma oscillations, are involved with memory retrieval. So here we go. The team speculates the brain may be playing a last recall of important life events just before we die, similar to ones reported by people who have experienced near-death experiences, but of course didn't die, but they come back to say, I saw my life flash before my eyes, right? And then they think maybe this is scientific evidence, perhaps supporting that possibility. So there is a reality check here, though. And this comes from the researchers themselves. So the researchers stress that these groundbreaking findings are, however, based on a single case from the brain of a patient who had suffered injury, seizures, and swelling, which complicate the interpretation of the data. But the team plans to investigate, if possible, more cases and see how this new knowledge might help advance medical science. And of course, to do a further testing, these scientists and other scientists around the world, if we want to do this, would have to find a terminally ill patient and hook them up. It's sad and everything, but get permission and all that sort of thing, and then monitor. And when they pass, they'll be able to capture more information and maybe build on this scientific research that's just kicked off here in good old Estonia, of all places. So pretty interesting story.
Yeah, it's an amazing kind of luck, and obviously not so lucky for the patient, but just so happened to be in this situation to be able to capture this. Ralph, I know that in the science community, there's actually a pretty big problem because a lot of studies out there are done on college age students. Because a lot of the university research that goes on out there, that's really their pool. They go for incoming students that are taking Psych 101, and that's their pool of ways to test, for a lot of these things. So finding volunteers for any study, very, very hard. Finding a study for the last 30 seconds of death, of life, I can imagine even harder.
Yep. That's what I was alluding to as in passing about the bit of you'd have to have the patient's permission, the family's permission. May we hook them up to an EEG and monitor them in the last days of their life in the hopes of capturing when they actually pass. And that's a toughie. The only thing I can kind of really think, Ralph, and this is an issue that I know came up in Canada quite a bit, and all over the world, they're having these conversations about, passing with dignity and human euthanasia, stuff like that. So maybe studies like this aren't completely out of the question. We can learn more and, hey, find out what really happens. Does everyone just get that bright white light in the tunnel and that kind of thing? Who knows? We'll find out. But still, very, very interesting that they're able to kind of capture that. So, as I said before, didn't exactly want to end on that one, but it was still a very fun story, Ralph. Story number 3, though, that's going to be our end point. And this one, I think, has some good possibilities for everyone out there. Oh, it does. This is really interesting medical technology advanced news, from the BBC. And the headline here is Rejuvenation of a 53-year-old woman's skin could help tackle diseases of aging. So it's a bigger story than just involving the skin, but here we go. Scientists at Cambridge University recently announced that they have rejuvenated a 53-year-old woman's skin cells. So they are the equivalent of a 23-year-old's. And I'm going to stop here for a second. One of the things that was never fully explained in the article is how they determined it was specifically the skin at age 23. I would have thought they'd say maybe the skin of a woman half her age. Again, the patient 53 years old. So right up front, I just want to call out that I never figured out or found out how they could get it right down to 23-year-old.
I got this, Ralph.
I'll volunteer for this too. But anyway, let me read this.
And not so much for volunteer, but I may know kind of an answer how they kind of age a cell. Good. There are these things called telomeres, and for everyone out there who took high school like biology, they may remember those. But they are, according to Google, are made up of repetitive sequences of non-coding DNA that protect the chromosome from damage. Each time a cell divides, the telomeres become shorter. Eventually, the telomeres become so short that the cell can no longer divide. So they're at the end of each chromosome, and eventually they become so short. That's really what causes skin cells to die quicker and less elasticity in the skin. I'm sure that they measured the length of these telomeres, and she had the similar length of a 23-year-old, even though she was 53.
Oh, great. Thanks, Ben. What a great value add. So thank you. Solved the mystery.
No problem.
For me. Thank you. So again, to read the first headline here, just to reset here. Scientists at Cambridge University recently announced that they have rejuvenated a 53-year-old woman's skin cells. So they are the equivalent of a 23-year-old's. And again, thanks, Ben. In addition to skin treatment, though, the goal of their rejuvenation research is to develop treatments for other age-related diseases such as diabetes, heart disease, and neurological disorders. And the technology used for the skin rejuvenation process is based on techniques used to create good old Dolly, the cloned sheep, more than 25 years ago. And boy, was that a big story. In this latest breakthrough, the Cambridge team used something called the induced pluripotent stem cell technique on the 53-year-old skin cells. And the induced pluripotent stem cell technique, by the way, offers an alternative to the controversial use of human embryonic stem cells for research. And the induced pluripotent stem cell technique uses cells from a patient, not stem cells derived by the controversial practice of destroying a human embryo to obtain stem cells. And by the way, the human embryos used to obtain stem cells are about 4 to 5 days old after fertilization. But nonetheless, it's still a very controversial thing. So instead of reprogramming or transforming the woman's skin cells into an embryonic stem cell-like state, and that's the usual end result of the induced pluripotent stem cell procedure. So once again, it's taking human cells from some part of the body and using this pluripotent stem cell procedure. But the idea of initially is to create new stem cells, right? But that's not what they did here. So instead of that, the Cambridge team was able to rejuvenate the 53-year-old skin cell samples and keep them as skin cells, but to a state as if they came from a 23-year-old. And thanks to Ben, now we understand how they could measure that. The team says some of the first applications could be to rejuvenate skin in older people in parts of the body where they have been cut or burned. Now, there is a reality check here, as so often is the case. The Cambridge team stressed this, what I would call a fountain of youth breakthrough, was at a very early stage, and several scientific issues must be overcome before it can move out of the lab and into the clinic. But nonetheless, you know, Ben, medical science is, you want to have uplifting and something make you feel good in this world of the Ukraine war and so many other horrible things going on. Just look to medical science, and there's great hope for the future.
Absolutely. And I couldn't think of a better story to kind of end on. And just to kind of reiterate what I was talking about, and because this seems to be what this is really about, which is these telomeres. Someone described it to me, or at least the site describes it as the plastic bit at the end of a shoelace. That's really what a telomere is. It's so that the DNA doesn't become all frayed and frazzled and it can't reproduce and do its job. So it's like adding a new plastic bit to the end of it so it can keep doing it. But obviously, you know, just your skin cell, humans are a lot more than just their skin. They have cells all throughout the body. So there's a lot more to this. And Ralph, like you said, it's very uplifting, though, that we are making some kind of progress. Because I know with our space story, you know, we were talking about the elves and the Old English for Morning Star, Arendelle. I mean, hey, one of the things about the elves, they get to live forever. And that might be us one day. And then, hey, maybe we can go visit a 12.9 billion year old star. That'd be fun.
There you go.
So there you go. Okay, everyone, and that's about it for us today. And Ralph, that was that was very, very good group. I want to let everyone know that myself, I'll be out of the office for the end of next week, and Ralph, you'll be out of the office the end of next week and the week after. But after that, Ralph's going to be back. He's going to be refreshed. Ralph, I hope you have a great vacation. Yeah. And everyone else out there, we hope that you have a great vacation as well. And hey, we'll catch you here next time. Everyone, have a good one. Bye, everyone.